The LG G4 is here, but before you pick one up, these are 5 things you need to know. So what's up guys, Jonathan here with TLD. Hope you guys are doing well. The G4 is in the house, I've spent some time with it, and not only are these my impressions, but 5 of the more important points that I think you should take into consideration before picking one up. The first being, the camera is really good. So I'm almost done wrapping up my Galaxy S6 review, and I can without a doubt say that it might be one of the best cameras on a smartphone this year, but the G4 might have just changed that. It boasts a 16 megapixel rear shooter with a wide open f1.8 aperture. And that aperture is what's going to help out with low light performance and also give you that nice blurred out background shot with the subject in focus. You combine that with super fast autofocus, DSLR-like control, and the ability to shoot RAW, and you have some serious business going on in the camera department. Now I want to emphasize that it's DSLR-like, and it's not going to replace one, but it's still going to do a really good job, and I got a chance to shoot with it and was really impressed with it so far. From what I can tell, because it shoots in RAW, and that's such a big file, it gives you a lower resolution preview, and at first when I was looking back at my pictures I took, I thought I was going crazy and could not get it in focus, but once you actually zoom in a little bit, you can see how crispy and how detailed those photos are. It's kind of ridiculous. So I think it's safe to say the G4 is definitely part of Team Crispy. In fact, it might be the captain of Team Crispy, and I'm really curious to see how it compares against the Galaxy S6. If you guys want to see a full comparison, definitely let me know by hitting that like button. The next thing you need to know is that the buttons are on the back. Now let me preface this by stating, yes, I know it's not a new feature. The G4's predecessor, the G3, also had buttons on the back, but for someone coming from any other phone on the planet without buttons on the back, they might be a little thrown off at first. It's not the end-all, be-all magical location for button placement, but it works well once you get used to it, and getting used to it is what you need to take away from this video. I think for most of us, anything outside our comfort zone generally tends to push us away initially and right back to something we are comfortable with. So if you like everything else about this phone, just give it some time, you will get used to it. Now the third thing you need to know is that you shouldn't be worried about the processor or performance. The big thing in mobile right now is an 8-core or an octa-core processor. So in theory, an 8-core should automatically be better than a 6-core, right? Not exactly. There's a lot more that goes into how fast the phone performs, or more importantly, feels. The G4 opted to go with a 6-core Snapdragon 808 over the 8-core Snapdragon 810 in the M9 or G Flex 2, for example. The 810 is technically 2 4-core processors, while the 808 is a dual-core plus a quad-core. Not only is the 808 surprisingly close in performance, but the 810 ends up throttling when it heats up, and performance dips considerably. So really it comes down to not letting yourself get caught into the spec craze or feeling like you have an inferior phone because you have 2 less cores. From initial impressions, the G4 is really snappy, but I will definitely touch more upon that in my full review. So next up in what you should know is that the G4 has a replaceable battery and micro SD card slot, which in this day and age in terms of flagships is a rarity. To be specific, it is a 3000 milliamp hour removable battery, which should get you pretty solid battery life, and that micro SD card slot supports cards up to 2 terabytes. Now real quick, before you get overly excited and end up needing a wet nap, there's 2 things you gotta realize. 1, there aren't micro SD cards up to that capacity yet, and 2, when they arrive, they're gonna be really expensive. Obviously, just because you're probably not gonna have 2 terabytes of micro SD card storage in there, that's not gonna be a reason to shy away from the phone. You can pick up some pretty solid capacities for really cheap, and I'll post a few down below in case you are picking up a G4. Now the last thing to know is that the screen is beautiful, but it sizes in at 5.5 inches, so I think for most people, it's slightly outside the ideal one-handed comfort zone, because for me, the sweet spot is between 4.7 and 5.1 inches, so just keep that in mind before picking up the G4, but besides that, it is an amazing looking display. It packs a resolution of 2560 by 1440 on an IPS LCD display. It's sharp, vibrant, and crispy as hell. So regardless of what type of media you're consuming, whether it be video, you're reading text, or playing games, it is downright just an enjoyable experience. Aside from that, that wraps up the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and definitely feel free to subscribe if you haven't yet. That way you don't miss the full review and other awesome tech coming up. If you guys have any questions, drop a line down below, or the absolute best way to get a hold of me is on Twitter at TLD Today. That is linked down below. This is Jonathan, and I will see you guys later.